In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Friends, please be seated. Jesus finds himself amongst good church-going folks. The type of people that would get up early on a Sunday morning, take a shower and shave and put on dress clothes and come to church. You know, the right sorts of people. The scribes and the Pharisees. People like us. And they start complaining. This is unlike church life, because people in church never complain about anything. But these good church people do start complaining. And they are going on and on about the type of people Jesus chooses to spend his time with. Did you know that Jesus spends time with people who like to sin? You laugh, but it's not a joke, he did. And they say, Jesus, those aren't the right sorts of people. Why are you wasting your time with them? And so Jesus says, let me tell you a little story. Secretly, he didn't tell them this, but I think they probably figured it out. The story was about them. There was once a father who has two sons. The younger boy comes to his father and says, Father, give me what's rightly mine. Now, the boy's never worked a day in his life. He's got baby smooth hands, no wrinkles, probably fingernails to die for, right? Give me what's mine, what I've earned. Really, nothing was his. It was stuff the father had earned who was going to give it to him as a gift. But give it to me. And so the dad divides his property and he says, all right, son, here you go. This half of what I've earned and developed and done is yours. And he gives it to him. And the boy says, perfect. I'm going to go and live an awesome life now in another country and make my way. So what does he do? Well, he does just what any good young man would do, given a whole lot of money and discretionary time. He goes to the city to lead an awesome life. I mean, really great. He's going to do so many awesome things with so many awesome people. It's going to be, well, awesome. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be the best life. And then he spends his money on dissolute living. Now just imagine the kind of things a young man with no boundaries and lots of money and no encumbrances on his time would spend his time doing. I'm sure he did all of them. He volunteered with Habitat for Humanity. He went to the early service at church. All those sorts of things he was doing with his time and money. Well, come to find out, living an awesome life in the city is really expensive. And he burns through a lot of his money. He says, well, it's not a big deal. I'm going to lead a slightly less awesome life, but still a pretty good one. It'll be fine. Well, guess what? Even a slightly less awesome life is pretty expensive, come to find out. And he burns through the rest of his money. Well, now that's a problem, because he's hungry. And no one there was really his friend. No one cared enough to say, hey, what are you doing? You're wrecking your life. So he hires himself out like a slave, lives in a sty with pigs, and wishes he could feast on the slop the pigs won't eat. So there he is in the city, hungry and filthy and tired. And come to find out, there's not much that pigs won't eat. And he picks himself up. He says, this is stupid. My father's slaves have more than enough bread to waste it. They've got a good bed to sleep in. And here I am in the sty trying to get slop scraps from pigs. I'm going home. And he picks himself up and he starts walking home. The whole way he's walking, he keeps rehearsing exactly what is he going to say, because he imagined his brother is not going to be super happy to see him back. And he thinks, what will the slaves think when they see me? What will my mom and dad think? Father, I'm not worthy to be called your son, for I've sinned against heaven and against you. But let me come back as a slave and serve you. And the whole way the boy is walking, and he's rehearsing these words to himself. He knows he's done bad. And he's coming back not sure exactly how to make his way there. Now that is the story of the prodigal son, isn't it? You know that story, but secretly, that story is about good church people like you. It's about the sorts of people that would get up and take a shower and a shave on Sunday morning, get clothes on, and come to church. The kind of people that would volunteer their time at Habitat for Humanity or at the hospital. Jesus is telling that story to the good religious people because it's about them. We are each like the prodigal son. Each of us has been given so many gifts by God. Think about how awesome it is that you exist. Think about how amazing it is that we are going to go and have lunch together in about 20 or 30 minutes. And all this food, like magic, will appear there. It's really not magic, it's Pie Sharp and the Parish Life people that make it appear there. Please thank them. But like magic, it will be there. How wonderful that you can sit here and take a breath in. Do you feel that in you when you breathe? That's the breath of life from God. You didn't put that there. God did. All of creation is a gift. It's a blessing. God's given you what's rightly yours. Well, really, God's given you what's rightly His to use. And it's tempting to end here. It is Lent after all, and it's a season of penance. You're like the prodigal son or the prodigal daughter. God gave you lots of good stuff. You did dissolute living. Repent and return. There. A perfectly fine Lenten sermon. But the story of the prodigal son is not just about the prodigiousness of the boy. It's really the story of the prodigal, wasteful father. Because as the boy is walking back home, his dad is there, and he's been looking for him on the horizon. He's been looking down the street for his son to come back. And he sees him one day. And this old man starts running breathlessly down the street, and he sees the boy. And when his son sees his father, he starts saying, "Father, I've sinned against you in heaven. I'm not worthy." Stop it. Just stop it, his father says. And he gives him a hug and a kiss. And he yells for his slaves, "Put a ring on his finger. Bring out my best robe and put it on my son's back. Bring him shoes. Go, prepare a feast. Kill the best calf. Because we're having a party tonight." See, the son was right in his speech. He had sinned against heaven and on earth. He was no longer worthy to be called his father's son. All that awesome living. But the father didn't care about what his son had done with the time and the money. The father cared that his boy was back. That he who had been thought of as dead and unrecoverably lost was back. The father's the really prodigious and wasteful one in the story, because he's so generous with his love. Now, I dare say that most of you have not spent your life in quote-unquote dissolute living. We live good, decent lives, don't we? But each of you is that prodigal son or that prodigal daughter. We have ran away from God. We have taken the gifts that He has given us and we've squandered them. We've used them poorly. But if you come to your senses one day and decide you want to come home, God's been running after you the whole time. He sent His Son, Jesus, to put that pure linen robe on your back, the best robe, the robe of baptism. Friends, God's not trying to get you for what you've done. He's not worried about that. He just wants you to come home. Amen.